Hey everyone, John Pollock and Wai Ting here from Post Wrestling doing a special bonus show where the Mr. McMahon trailer has just dropped for the upcoming Netflix series, the 6-part series that premieres on September 25th. And Wai and I have not watched the trailer yet, so we thought, how can we just create more out of every viewing that we do? So we're going to watch the trailer and then we're going to react in real time afterwards. It's about 2 minutes or so, and then we'll react on the other side. So here is the trailer released on Thursday by Netflix.
Mr. McMahon, the first trailer that we've received from Netflix, your immediate reaction, John?
Well, obviously they're going to go into the Janelle Grant stuff, and that tells me it's going to be more than just a surface level that they're going to go into this. Just watching it, it feels like the original, and this is just me guessing, is that the original intent of what this series was going to be was about the first 70% of that trailer, and where things probably came at odds was the final 30%, where all of a sudden, like, the scandals hit, the resignation, how all of that is going to be handled, and how many interviews. We know Vince McMahon was not interviewed after the resignation in January. Is there anybody at an executive level? I'm looking at Paul Levesque. Did anyone participate in any interviews for the Janelle Grant aspect of this documentary from within the company? I think Paul Levesque you would see. We saw Bruce Pritchard in there. No sign of Nick Khan. Dwayne Johnson, who, if he was interviewed after the resignation, would mean that's when he was a board member for the company. And in terms of media people, the only person I saw in there was David Shoemaker. And I think but we did see the highlights of all, like, a focus on the steroid distribution trial that I think everyone knew was going to be covered. And I would imagine that there's going to be some people that were reporting at the time in that era. Chris Benoit, as we can see, being covered here. A lot of the names and face. I didn't see one interview subject in there that would be that, oh wow, they got this person. I think everyone would have been of your assumption of the key people that would be interviewed, and indicating the participation that lasted with WWE up until a certain point.
Yes. Yeah. I'm kind of curious to know, how much of this series was complete before everything over the past, over a year now, and how much they kept in and how much they've added to it, or how much of a re-edit of the entire thing that they might have had to do. I watched this and I think it's very much similar to other Netflix documentaries, or just really documentaries in general about controversial subjects, in that they tend to come across as almost like
Tabloidish?
A little tabloidish. I was going to say almost like celebrations of, like, how eccentric and unique, and I think, I don't know, original and cavalier, these personalities tend to be. And
that's the first half of the trailer. And even down to the wording on the poster was madman, mastermind. I mean,
Sure.
that kind of lends to your description of, like, this eccentric, larger than life figure, and he's got his quirks.
Yeah. So one of the people involved in Mr. McMahon is, I believe, the producer or director of Tiger King, Chris Smith. And I think Joe Exotic is like a perfect example. I mean, when you just kind of look at what the documentary is about, what the documentary alleges that person did, hardly somebody to celebrate. But coming out of the documentary, he is to many, like, sort of like the main character hero of that story. Will this series have the same effect for Vince McMahon, where at the moment, I think even the mention of McMahon is, makes you feel kind of strange. This is allowing us to speak about Vince McMahon. Now, it's going to give us a thorough, hopefully, analysis of his entire history, and maybe his updated thoughts up until the Janelle Grant story, at least, of a lot of those things, like the steroid scandal, like Chris Benoit, which are two subjects that they've promised, and we wonder what else.
Things that could be their own episodes right there. Like, that's going to be the challenge of this, is that there's so many events when you're covering a Vince McMahon that could necessitate their own episode, that are largely going to be contained to a finite amount of time? And is this going to be a documentary series where it's simply you're checking off the box, like we covered this, but what depth do you get into some of these subjects? That's going to be a challenge, even with 6 episodes that can go by very quickly when you're talking about significant subjects.
Sure, certainly, yeah. It promises to be, just an analysis of, I think, how this guy might have gotten to this point, how this guy might have gotten from, wherever he started off as, to the point where he now is confusing perhaps the real Vince McMahon with the Mr. McMahon character. And I'm very curious and almost even a little worried that is going to be some form of I have to be very careful with my words, but I worry that it'll be, at least in the minds of some of the viewers, some form of justification for what is now being alleged for him. So I'm very curious to see how they handle it. If I'm careful with my words right now, I have to imagine the producers of this are that much more thorough. We know that they've attempted to contact Janelle Grant for an interview, so we know that they are trying perhaps to maybe give a well-rounded perspective on that particular story, but my focus is more so just really on that, those last few episodes and how they'll handle that lawsuit.
Yeah, it was also noted near the end that it's Ringer Films and Library Films. Of course, there was no mention of WWE Studios, which had originally been announced back in 2020 when this project was getting greenlit. And beyond that, I would say of the subjects we saw being interviewed, I would think the only one of those that I would imagine you would get some adversarial opinions of Vince McMahon is Bret Hart. And I'd also be curious when that interview was done, because we have seen how outspoken Bret has been. One of the few people in the industry that has been extremely outspoken since the Janelle Grant suit was filed in January. This interview might predate that as well. I think a lot of these interviews are probably going to fall into the pre-Janelle Grant, pre-scandal period for Vince McMahon. So we're going to see, that's a lot of these people could have, differing opinions on Vince McMahon between that period. And a lot of them are listen, this is in professional wrestling. I think there's still going to be it's very evident of the amount of criticism you've seen from people within the industry towards Vince McMahon, that this is still the guy that his son-in-law is running the company, and it's just you never know. This has been the most powerful figure for a lot of these people's lives, that what they might feel privately is something they're not comfortable saying publicly.
Well, I mean, look no further than the people that are actually broadcasting the documentary as, potential conflict of interest, right? I mean, this is Netflix. That is, I think, one of the bigger focuses of this whole thing is the fact that Netflix is about to enter possibly 10-year plus deal with the WWE, and this is essentially their biggest step into professional wrestling before that deal actually takes place. So,
we're going to find out in this next month, because if this trailer does not air on WWE programming and there's no mention of this documentary on WWE programming, I think that speaks volumes in terms of how badly they want to distance themselves from Vince McMahon. And you cannot tell me that Netflix would just be shrugging their shoulders at such a decision when that is the avenue you want to promote this documentary toward, is your wrestling audience on WWE's programming to millions of people.
Sure. Though I feel like if you're a wrestling fan that's curious about the subject, you'll probably hear about it plenty, even outside of WWE TV. In some ways, I would even say that would help the sort of authenticity of, or at least questions of authenticity related to the documentary, because you don't want this at all to feel like an authorized WWE approved, production. You want this to feel like something that WWE doesn't want you to see. And I'm, again, it is going to be on Netflix. We have to ask those questions, and we're going to be watching this with a microscope to see how protective Netflix is of the WWE's reputation, how much they distance Vince McMahon, the character, or the person himself, from the actual product. These are all really interesting and fascinating questions that I think we'll find out. We still don't know if this is released at once or week by week. Right.
Yeah, I'm going to try and find that out. I don't think that has been stated outright, if it's going to be all 6 episodes coming out on September 25th, or if it's going to be a weekly release. For my sanity, I would prefer 1 episode per week.
Yeah, right. All right.
6 hours dumped on us Wednesday. All right, there you go. This was just a quick bonus to react to the trailer. We will obviously be covering this series on the site in the next month.
Yeah, leave us your thoughts in the comments. We're only recording this video for YouTube, so let us know what you guys think. And as always, if you want more coverage of all this stuff, subscribe to the channel and come back here for our other shows. If you like this video, consider joining our Patreon, the Post Wrestling Cafe. Multiple bonus podcasts every week, ad-free shows, and access to our full archive. Otherwise, a like and subscribe is much appreciated. Thank you for watching.